don't give up when we're tired. That isn't the way that I'm wired.
Firestorm is upon us, and while I wasn't at the capture event, I'm not a game changer and thus don't have any own gameplay to show you guys or first person impressions from actually playing it, I thought I would wrap up all the details, all the news around Firestorm that has come out in what is essentially the last 24 hours, thanks to a new trailer released for it, some last details provided by DICE in form of multiple blog posts, as well as of course a series of videos produced by the EA Game Changers, giving us first impressions, gameplay, and some additional details on Firestorm. But before we get into the specifics that I want to talk about in today's video, focusing on weapons and gadgets, mechanics and maps, vehicles and of course objectives, let me run you down the bare basics for those who just want the quick and important information. First of all, Firestorm will of course be launching this coming Monday on the 25th of March for everybody who owns Battlefield 5, with solos and squad games available, not however yet with duos. Those will only be coming in April. It's going to be free to play for those who own Battlefield 5, but not for those who do not, and is thus not available to the wider public without purchasing Battlefield 5 beforehand, limiting of course likely its success and reach, regrettably. Lastly then, there's no word on the update cycle just yet on progression and cosmetics and how this is all going to function. However, what DICE has said is that there's going to be future updates and additions to Firestorm, just as there is with Battlefield 5's regular multiplayer. As to what exactly that will entail, I think is, as of now, deliberately being left vague and open to interpretation. With that out of the way then, let's start off with our first deep dive on weapons and gadgets. The basics that we need to start off with are clearly the different tiers. There's green, blue, and purple variants of all available weapons in Battlefield 5 Firestorm, with a gold tier reserved for special gadgets such as the V1 column, but not, as far as I've been able to tell, available for the usual weaponry that you find laying around, primary or secondary that is. When it comes to these tiers, the difference between them is essentially green is the standard tier with no specializations and usually only iron sights, with the blue tier getting 2 specializations and some form of sights. In most cases it's a medium range focus scope, but depending on the weapon and what suits it better, the better option will be reserved in terms of scopes for the purple variant, the top tier variant, which will also only have 2 available specializations equipped. However, in essence, the better variants for those specializations equipped. These things can include magazine upgrades, hipfire upgrades, accuracy upgrade, recoil buffs to the weapon, and will generally obviously be worth picking up. But there is no individual upgrades or attachment system that you can control yourself, so you can't go around picking up barrel beddings or some form of other specialization and equipping them to your weapon as you wish and as you desire. In terms of what weapons are actually going to be available in the game, we know actually the complete list. In the case of the SMGs, you're going to be getting the MP40, Swami, Sten gun, and Tommy gun. In terms of the rifles, you're going to be getting the Gewehr 43, the M1A1, the STG 44, and the Sturmgewehr 15. In terms of the sniper rifles, you're going to be getting the ZH-29, the Kar-98, and the Lee Enfield. For the machine guns, you're going to be getting the Bren, FG-42, and MG-42, and then of course for the shotguns, the 12G and M97, and for secondaries, the P38, P08, M1911, Liberator, and of course MK6 revolver, alongside 10 additional melee weapons, including some of the things we don't actually have available in the full Battlefield 5 multiplayer, such as for example the cricket bat. In terms of how many of these weapons you're going to be able to carry then, you're going to have 2 primary slots available as well as a secondary slot, allowing you to carry something like a pistol, and then 4 gadget slots as of default, with 1 being reserved for health pouches and 1 being reserved for grenades, with additional gadget slots, at least in terms of carrying capacity, being made available through the 3 tiers of available backpacks, each respectively adding 2, 4, or of course 6 additional slots, depending on whether they are green, blue, or the purple elite tier. In terms of health and armor then, your base health is 150, with an additional up to 150 possible health or armor being able to add it, depending on what armor harness you've actually been able to acquire and how much armor you then have been able to apply. There's 3 tiers, each adding respectively 1, 2, or 3 available armor slots, with each armor plating that you insert being able to give you an additional 50 armor available, so for a total of 150 additional health. And then once you're in the down but not out state, you've got a new set of 150 health. That, of course, will run out eventually, and if you're shot in that state, you will lose that health as well. Once that's gone, you're completely dead. You cannot be revived from that state onwards. You also cannot be brought back into the game, as is the case with Apex Legends. Generally, actually, Battlefield 5 doesn't seem to have taken much from Apex Legends in the way it's designed Firestorm. On the one hand, that's sad because some of the mechanics are very good, especially the pinging system. Maybe would have been nice to see implemented in some form, as well as it is in Apex Legends in Battlefield 5's Firestorm. Then again, it's good to see Firestorm having its own character, its own identity, and not simply being a version, variant, or carbon copy of the great work done at Respawn Studios. Moving on from the weapons then, to the vehicles, a great point of controversy when it came to Battlefield 5 Firestorm and how that would balance out. The first thing to say is that pretty much every vehicle that you know that is available in Battlefield 5's multiplayer will be available in Battlefield 5 Firestorm, not accounting for aircraft, of course. So pretty much all the light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks, transport vehicles, they're all available. Also, of course, the special reinforcements or squad vehicles, which are of course the Crocodile tank and the Sturmtiger, those are in the game as well. In terms of Firestorm exclusive vehicles, you've got some new additions in terms of cars, transports and trucks. You've also of course got some exclusives such as the tractor, the amphibious vehicle, and of course the helicopter prototype, which should mix things up a little bit more. Also, you've got the AA and anti-tank gun trailers that can be attached to various vehicles. Those will be in the game as well. Now, if you're worrying that these vehicles are going to be boundlessly overpowered, they are and they aren't. While there hasn't been any major changes to the health of these vehicles or the functionality of these vehicles, there has been some essentially balance and checks placed on them to make them limited in the amount of effectiveness they can bring to the table. Not only can obviously everybody carry anti-tank weaponry, and there is various of it available in the game, but it can be found in many places. In other words, most well-equipped squads will have multiple players with anti-tank weaponry with them, able to take on an enemy tank, an enemy squad in one of the transport vehicles. Also, in addition to that, ammo for those vehicles is very limited. You can find it and resupply it, not in the traditional resupply station way, I believe, at least so far, but you need to do that. And there's also fuel for these vehicles. So if you run out of fuel and don't have any to resupply your vehicle with, well, your vehicle's not going to move anymore. And I suspect in the case of the helicopter, not moving means you're just going to fall out of the sky and die. So there's additional strategic elements to counter and balance these vehicles and to keep them in check, and for squads to pay close attention to when using them vehicles if they want to keep them running and keep them alive. In terms of objectives, what I'd like to mention, because this is a more interesting and unique aspect of Battlefield 5's Firestorm, there is various. There's first of all the strong boxes and then the safes. The safes having just better items available in them than the strong boxes. There's vehicle lockups, relatively self-explanatory, them holding of course the unique vehicles that you're going to be wanting to use to take out your competition on the battlefields. They're a little bit tough to get into as they take quite a bit of time, especially if you're a solo player, but if you're two or more, you should be able to get there in a reasonable period of time. But they don't only hold vehicles, they also hold other loot, rare loot such as, I don't know, better weapons, ammunitions, or of course gadgets. There's also resupply point objectives. They essentially allow you to get some squad loot, and there's barrage balloons, which allow you to get artillery barrages, supply drops, V1s, or of course vehicle drops as well. So you can call in something like a Panzer IV right onto the battlefield, hop in, and start taking out your enemies. Lastly then, in terms of mechanics and the map, there's a couple more things to cover. Firstly, the playing area does not cover the entire map in any given game right at the start even. There's only a certain circle, certain part of the map that has been made available. It's a large section of the map, don't worry about that, but it will shift and change for each match, making different parts of the map available or not available depending on each individual game. This keeps things a little bit fresher and also is important for the pacing of the game, which reportedly from people who have played it is actually pretty good in terms of making sure that there's not too much of a mid-game lull with nothing happening. There always seems to be a little bit of action going on, and that's of course something people were worried about, given that we've got a large battle royale map but only 64 players playing on it in the case of Firestorm so far. In terms of the map design, there seems to be plentiful cover, plentiful pathing, if you can say that for a Battle Royale map, but overall a variety of engagement distances without too much of a Battlefield 1 map design vibe going on where there's just clusters of cover and almost exclusive openness between them. Plenty of rocks, plenty of bushes, plenty of trees, but overall not too much cover as to where it just becomes an absolute clusterfuck. Also, there seems to be some kind of backstory behind the actual Firestorm and why everybody is killing themselves in a firing, but that is hidden behind some form of Sullus Easter egg mission, I guess you could say. The community will have to get their hands on the full release and figure out what exactly is going on there, but as of now, there's much to discover supposedly in Firestorm's world in terms of Easter eggs yet to be unearthed. But that pretty much wraps it up for everything we know about Battlefield 5's Firestorm, coming of course this Monday. I myself am most definitely looking forward to it. The trailer and the information provided so far make it look interesting, make it look like somebody's actually put a decent amount of effort into designing this mode. Time will tell if it sticks, what kind of update schedule and cycle we get, what kind of progression and cosmetics are available, and whether DICE and Criterion Games can keep things interesting for players of Battle Royale titles. Now, I'd love to hear your opinion on Battlefield 5's Firestorm so far, and as well as, of course, this video, as well as, of course, your usual video suggestions. So leave those down below in the comments or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.